Hello, James here. If you watched our Majin Buu video, you may remember a disclaimer about electronic issues resulting in some static. I thought it was my headphones getting old, but that wasn't the issue. Every other video should be fine since we re-recorded, but letting you know now, if you hear it, the problem is not on your end.
Greetings, my lords. My name is Stuart, son of Michael, and welcome to this week's review of the Lord of the Rings characters Legolas and Gimli. If you missed it, last week we covered Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Be sure to watch that video after this one and do all those things that YouTubers ask you to do, like and subscribe, blah blah blah. This week, however, we'll be covering the two most exotic characters of the Fellowship, and that is Legolas Greenleaf and Gimli, son of Gloin. Now, I realize I could have milked this video by making it two separate characters and made this whole big thing, but have you guys actually looked at their history? Unlike Aragorn, Gandalf, or even the Hobbits, Legolas and Gimli's story pretty much begin and end throughout the events of the War of the Ring. Legolas, despite being possibly thousands of years old, is a completely unknown and wild element. I double-checked in both my copy of the book and the wiki. Legolas is the son of the Elven King Thranduil of Mirkwood, but neither his mother nor his birth date were ever known, meaning we really have no idea what his life was like before the events of the film trilogy. And if you're about to mention his role in the Hobbit films, this is basically fanfiction made by Peter Jackson, and everyone agrees that it's bad, so I'm just not going to acknowledge it in these videos. The first time Legolas canonically enters the story is during the Council of Elrond, where he arrives at the urge of his father to discuss the escape of Gollum. Because Legolas is basically acting as a guard and extension of his father, we're going to start him at lawful neutral. Gimli, surprisingly, even though he's not in the Hobbit trilogy, actually has more canonical connection than even Legolas. Gimli is the son of Gloin and was originally meant to accompany Bilbo and the other dwarves on their quest to the Lonely Mountain. However, since Gimli was a small, poor lad, only 60 years old at the time, he was deemed too young to go adventuring. I repeat, Gimli, son of Gloin, at the tender small age of 60, was considered too young to adventure. As such, he is still a stout and proud dwarf, more concerned with the mountains and the affairs of dwarves. To his credit, he is loyal to his word and does whatever he can to complete the mission. As such, we'll be also labeling Gimli's starting alignment at lawful neutral. Throughout the video, we will only be looking after the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings film trilogy, but just like in the Aragorn video, if there is relevant information I need to share, I will do so. Also, be sure to include any information that I may have forgotten, particularly when it comes to Gimli the elf friend. I really love that information, and if you could share as much information as you can in the comments, whatever I miss out on, please do so, because I love Gimli so much. But with that out of the way, let's go. However, before we get to the ding-dings, I want to give a huge thank you to all of the over 500 people who went and followed our Kickstarter. As a special thank you, I have set up a special VIP system for those people who want the best deal. If you head on over to getwaifu.loadingcrewcrafts.com by clicking the link in the description and in the pinned comment, this will take you to our special VIP page. By submitting just a $1 payment, you are guaranteeing yourself the best spot, giving you a 10% discount on the softcover book. That may not seem like much, but if we reach $20,000 in funding, this softcover will be upgraded to a hardcover absolutely free. This is eventually saving you like $30. I'll let you know that as of this recording, I already have 150 VIPs already signed up, and I only ever intended to open up to 100. But since everyone is just being so amazing and so supportive with this, I'm just gonna go ahead and open this up to 300 people. So unless something miraculous happens and this 300 fills up immediately, that is as many VIP spots as I'm going to offer. So go ahead and click down in the description, go to getwaifu.loadingcrewcrafts.com, put in $1, and it guarantees you the best deal we have, including 10% off and a free hardcover upgrade if we reach higher tiers of funding. Thank you again for all of your support. I cannot thank you enough. It's kind of been a dream of mine to create an RPG book, and the fact that this glorified Valentine's Day shitpost is turning into something huge, I'm absolutely blown away. Thank you so much for your support, and now, on to the video.
A slight tingle in my fingers. I think it's affecting me.
He can't hold his liquor.
And you have my bow.
And my axe.
Both of their journeys officially begin when they enter Rivendell during the Council of Elrond. They are revealed the existence of the One Ring, and Gimli stands up to destroy it. This does not work. Once Frodo offers to take the ring to Mordor in order to be destroyed, however, both of them swear allegiance. Lawful good for Legolas, and I'm gonna make it lawful neutral for Gimli. I know that sounds weird, but him kind of going chaotic neutral in the middle of the meeting, a little weird. Joining the Fellowship of the Ring, Legolas and Gimli go through with them through Moria, where Pippin causes a loud noise on accident, leading goblins and orcs and a troll straight to them. Fighting for their own survival and for the survival of everyone in the party gives them both a neutral good.
I have the eyes of a hawk and the ears of a fox.
A nearby elven village senses Frodo and the ring. They are subsequently captured. However, Legolas talks them into granting them some hospitality. Lawful good for Legolas. But since Gimli insults the village leader straight to his face after they treat him so kindly, he's going to get a quick chaotic evil for putting the group's political ties in jeopardy and for his own self-satisfaction.
A lament for Gandalf.
The Fellowship remain for a time in Lothlorien. During that time, however, Gimli bonds with Legolas and learns to appreciate the magic woods and the hospitality of the elves. In the book, he especially appreciates lambus bread, stating that it was more delicious than even the most famous dwarven bakers. Stuff, I guess. Having a change of heart and learning the error of his ways surprisingly quickly, he thanks the elves for their hospitality and falls in love with Galadriel's beauty. I should specify he falls in love with her beauty specifically, not Galadriel. When parting them, Legolas was granted a new bow, and when Galadriel asks Gimli what gift she should give him, he simply asks for a strand of her hair, and she is so flattered by his politeness that she grants him 3. Now, it's really funny because this event is incredibly significant, because in Galadriel's past, a very, very powerful elf begged her to grant him a lock of her hair, and she refused. Gimli, who remember, is a member of a race of people who are hated by the elves, was granted a gift that not even a demigod of her own race received. Gimli has no idea how significant of a gift this actually is, but Legolas simply smiles. I'm going to give this a Nat 20 lore moment, and I think this might be the first time in this series where we've given out that award specifically. Man, what a moment! And you'll only know that if you read the books! Ah!
We will not abandon Merry and Pippin to torment and death.
Also, just like Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli protect the hobbits and attempt to save Boromir from Lurtz. They defeat the Uruks, grant the Son of Gondor a glorious funeral, and then run out to save Merry and Pippin, ending the Fellowship of the Ring. Lawful good.
I'm wasted on cross-country. We dwarves are natural sprinters. Very dangerous over short distances.
After pursuing the orcs for some time, Aragorn's party comes across the Rohirrim that informs them that the orcs are dead and the hobbits are nowhere to be seen. Also, a bonus chaotic good for Legolas for defending Gimli from the Rohirrim. The party learn that the hobbits wandered into Fangorn Forest and come across the White Wizard, who is Gandalf, and lets them know that the hobbits are safe with Treebeard. All of this amounts to an additional neutral good to the both of them.
Edoras and the Golden Hall of Meadowsel.
Once Gandalf joins the party, the four travel to Edoras in order to help King Theoden see reason. When they arrive, they understand that he is under the control of Saruman. They surrender their weapons and assist Gandalf in freeing the king from his grasp. Notice how none of the guards drew their weapons. Everyone knew what was happening and in on the plan to some extent. Lawful good for everybody. After freeing Theoden, the king declares a state of emergency and orders an evacuation to the fortress called Helm's Deep. Gandalf leaves the party to get reinforcements, while Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli help to escort the people of Rohan to Helm's Deep, expecting the full brunt of Saruman's forces now that the land has been liberated. They are ambushed and fight against the invasion, while Éowyn leads the people to Helm's Deep. Lawful good for them.
I want every man and strong lad, able to bear arms, to be ready for battle by nightfall.
Once Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli learn that Saruman's army is on their way to Helm's Deep, they stay and help them fight and defend the keep. They have no additional reason to do this other than being good and saving lives. With that, they get a lawful good. Haldir does show up with a contingency of elves, but this is very bizarre and was added for the movie because Peter Jackson just wanted elves at Helm's Deep. Lawful good for everybody again.
This fortress would never fall while your men defend it. They still defend it.
They have died defending it!
With the battle being seemingly lost, Aragorn makes plans to send everybody who's not fighting through the caves to safety, and while he and the king die on the battlefield to buy time for them to get away. Legolas and Gimli are both down to do the best that they can and also elect to stay, despite it being a death sentence. Luckily, Gandalf shows up with the Riders of Rohan, and Saruman's forces die and flee. Lawful good.
I've heard enough. Shoot him. Stick an arrow in his gob.
After the Battle of Helm's Deep, Gandalf and the party head to Isengard, where Gandalf tries to reason with Saruman to gain his help. But after the group is taunted and humiliated, Gimli encourages Legolas to shoot Saruman and be done with it, who quickly obliges, but is stopped by Gandalf. Saruman is down to fight, however is killed by Grima Wormtongue. Lawful good for doing what Gandalf asked, but Saruman dying anyway, and I'm gonna get up a chaotic good for Gimli for attempting to just go over their heads about it.
Tonight, we remember those who gave their blood to defend this country.
Legolas and Gimli continue their roles as supporting characters, not doing much to directly affect the story. One night after celebrations and Gimli gets crazily drunk, Pippin steals Saruman's Palantir from Gandalf and attempts to look at it, leading Sauron to believe that Pippin has the One Ring. Gandalf leaves with the Fool of a Took to Gondor, while Aragorn's party just waits until the beacons are lit and Gondor calls for aid. Once they do, they join the army of Rohan in supporting Gondor. I'm not really going to give this a ding because they quickly abandon this mission for a different one that Aragorn will go on later, but Gimli and Legolas find out that Aragorn is going into the mountains to recruit the army of the dead. He doesn't want them to come along, but they come along to help out anyway. Even if they think it's a bad idea, we're just going to give them both a lawful good for this.
Fire a warning shot past the bosun's ear.
Mind your aim.
After recruiting the army of the damned, Gimli fucks with Legolas's aim to make him kill a pirate on accident. You know, because it's funny. However, we're going to give him a chaotic neutral instead of a chaotic evil, because we're just about to sick an army of ghosts on them anyway.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
Throughout the rest of the films, Legolas and Gimli simply support Aragorn in the rest of his battles. First, at the Battle of Gondor, where they use the army of the dead to wipe out the 100,000 orcs in Sauron's forces, and then, after learning that Frodo will have no chance to reach Mount Doom on his own, Legolas and Gimli join Aragorn and the remaining cast in order to cause a distraction to remove Sauron's gaze from Mordor. This is a truly heroic and Nat 20 battle as the heroes unite, understanding that they have almost no hope for survival, but also understanding that this is the only hope Frodo has of destroying the ring. Because of their participation in all these battles, both Legolas and Gimli will gain a lawful good. And while not explicitly stated in the movies, Legolas and Gimli become lifelong friends, traveling to various regions together and supporting each other. For the next 100 years or so, I might be wrong on that exact timing, someone correct me in the comments please, Legolas and Gimli travel the world, helping to rebuild after the War of the Ring. Gimli even became the Lord of the Glittering Caves, which is basically the caves behind Helm's Deep. As they age, eventually Legolas built them a ship where they sailed together to the Undying Lands, and Gimli became the first dwarf to ever enter. Lawful good. Like I mentioned in the Aragorn video, Tolkien hated looking at his world through the realms of allegory and metaphor. However, since there are so many goddamn bad takes and busybody journalists and glorified Twitter posts happening lately, let's see what these two characters could possibly represent. Really, I see Legolas and Gimli as representatives of two very different sets of ideals, while at first may seem incompatible, or actually have quite a bit in common. Legolas, in my mind, represents the old ways and spirituality. The elves keep one eye on reality, but their attention on the arts and the nature and will of their gods. Though the elven religion are not how we would commonly think of religion nowadays, they are the old guard and live in the past where magic and spirituality are at their most powerful. Gimli, on the other hand, represents industry, ambition, and in a way, the greed of mortals. Even though dwarves are technically an older race than elves, just don't worry about that. Dwarves, much like elves, tend to keep to themselves and carve out great kingdoms, but frequently get themselves in trouble by pushing things too far. which separates them from the elves. They are ostensibly the spirit of ambition and determination. Elves and dwarves famously do not get along in Tolkien's universe, with elves being spiritual and dwarves being more secular, but separating the two neglects their full potential. Gimli, after discovering the beauty of Galadriel, began to appreciate this side that he originally neglected. Legolas, as well, found this endearing and began to bond with Gimli over his interests and became fascinated watching him do what he does. Elves in Tolkien's setting are surprisingly playful. You find that out in the original Hobbit book, but they had their own weird quirks. It would never occur to them, however, to keep track and compete over who kills more orcs. They didn't have drinking games, and they certainly didn't have a grim sense of humor that Gimli had.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
In reality, the ambition of progress and the wisdom of spirituality are amazingly compatible, and when brought together by the strength of man, aka Aragorn, they can accomplish the seeming impossible, even when against seemingly impossible odds. Legolas and Gimli don't really provide much in terms of character, even in the books, but what they actually provide is the wisdom of Tolkien, and the fact that he understands that it takes unity of all kinds of people in order to save the world. Legolas and Gimli are less characters and more representatives of different ideas. But hey, Tolkien himself would probably not agree with this assessment, and to be honest, I think you should feel free to reject it too. And if you just want to enjoy these stories as stories, please feel free. As for me, I'll see you next week as we take a look at the greatest of the Istar. And sorry, no, it's not Radagast. Thank you to the patrons, and I'll see you all next week.